everybody. I'm so excited to have our guest today. So, our guest is a subtraction activist. And if you have no idea what that means, don't worry because we're going to talk about it today. And she helps women build success that feels as good as it looks. She's a Harvard trained, educated by horses, and known for helping high performing leaders do more good without piling on more to dos. I am excited to have our guest today, Nell 3D. Welcome, Nell.
Oh, thank you
Hi.
so much, Colleen. It's nice to
Hi.
be here. Hi, Ashley.
All right. So we always start with, what did you think you wanted to be when you were a kid, right? Like when you think about career now, does it have any link to what you thought you were going to be doing when you were a little kid?
Certainly not. I guess maybe a teeny bit, but I wanted to be a veterinarian. I think I knew as a young introvert that like I actually working with animals would have been easier than people. And so I did like a veterinary like summer camp and everything. My aunt was a vet. I shadowed her every summer when I would go up to visit. And yeah, I wanted to be a vet.
I love that. And so, when you think about your career and kind of how it ended up progressing, because there are pictures of you with horses, and I know you've been trained by
Sure.
horses. So we know the horses kind of are in there. So there's some of the animal piece.
Yeah.
Talk us through a little bit about your career and when you sit to think, wow, like this doesn't seem to be adding up. Like I'm not on the right path.
Mhm. So I think there have been some mega changes, like, I don't know if Squiggle quite covers the
You've like
degree of
full root
fit.
U-turns.
Like,
Yeah.
correct, like 180s,
Yep.
U-turns, all of those, um, and somehow I'm like, "Ooh, I never really thought I was on the wrong path, though," like, even in the moment, maybe not clearly as it does in retrospect, but there was it kind of tracked. So, anyway, I when I was 12 years old, I changed school districts. I had gone to this elementary school that was really enriched with teachers who cared and parents who were engaged and diverse kids, and we walked to school, like, it was just everything I hope American public education would be. The middle school I would have gone to in 7th grade was not any
Mhm.
of those things. Like The Wire TV show, if you're familiar, bad news, gangs, teenage pregnancy, like, physical safety was the bar, not enrichment, much like and so
Yeah.
my mother, a self-employed massage therapist, didn't have a ton of cash, but she was able to have the savvy to move us over this arbitrary town line. And off I went to the West Hartford public schools, which are nationally recognized, and then to Harvard and beyond. And so at 12, I had this very like firsthand sense of all my classmates there were smart and kind of mischievous and athletic, right? And so were my classmates here. But here we had a ski trip every Wednesday afternoon and European tours for the jazz band, like the enrichment to say nothing of we were safe. And so in a kind of precocious 12-year-old way, not a pity party for my but just like, this is suboptimal. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So from that age, I mean, it built slowly, but by the time I graduated college, I knew that I wanted to go into nonprofit work and have some kind of impact on fixing this thing. So the veterinary path got left behind. And indeed, I worked for 10 years in non-for-profits internationally. I had kind of gotten the travel bug. So sorry, American public education. I took a break from that and went to work abroad. And that decade, y'all, like I was just trying to get like closer and closer to a life I could save. Like I started out teaching and doing some global youth programming, but I landed in the West Bank starting a community center for refugee communities, offering mental health for kids and women. So like really frontline, like living in the community and just doing it. Um, that expired, I'll say at some point, right? Like professionally, it was starting to rub a little bit what I was seeing my friends doing in New York or Boston. I didn't have that kind of mentorship or guidance. And then my dad died real young of brain cancer. And I didn't. choose to go to the funeral because I was so important here and I was really needed and I didn't have the money as a nonprofiteer. And within that 12 months, my marriage fell apart because I wasn't at home for that either. So those were two pretty potent hits of like, as a
Yeah.
life, this is not working, even if the career piece were going swimmingly, which again,
Yeah.
it quite. And so that's when I moved back to New York for kind of chapter two. But I'm going on and on. I'll pause there and you direct.
Well,
I'm cur I was I'm just curious looking back now, for that period of your life, um, do you do you wish you would have made changes or approached things differently, or do you feel like, the phrase "everything happens for a reason," and while I could have made changes then, I wouldn't have what I have now? What's your view around that?
I'm a pretty committed subscriber to the latter. I really think that, I've celebrated my dad's life in other ways since then. I actually have a half sister who was born to him on my 20th birthday. And so she's
Oh.
my twin by 20 years. She lives 20 miles south of me in New York City, and we see each other all the time and spend holidays together. And, so anyway, being at that funeral or not was a helpful wake up call of like, okay, family matters and
Mm.
maybe that choice again. But in terms of regret of that, I don't think so. And, my first husband was a delightful human. We're still friendly, and that was relatively painless as divorces go. We didn't have kids or much money or houses. So it was okay. I'm happily remarried. My second husband is great. I'm a big proponent of second marriages as well. But in the 12 struggle category.
You're preaching to the choir over here, so
yes. I think that's gonna be the next podcast is, like, why second marriages are better. Uh, in so many ways. It's like, I feel like we could just take that statement and we could listen to that conversation, but
For it.
yeah. Yeah. And it it's hard to start over, and after doing that sort of intense, emotionally traumatic work, to come back to the US, right? You are starting over in every way, shape, or form. You're starting over, right, from your immediate family, your bigger family, your career. And so
culturally, yeah,
culturally, right, all of those things. And
yeah,
What did you do? First, I mean, reverse culture shock is real. It's
yeah.
so much more intense, right? I don't know how much you like, but when you go abroad, it's gonna be weird. Like when you land in Tokyo, things are crazy. I couldn't read. Yeah. And then even France or Italy, and then certainly Palestine. Like these are very different places. So you're prepared. That's why I did it, was for that challenge and that newness and that learning. But then you come home and after a decade of being away, it felt very foreign, and
mhm,
that's hard. That's a bizarre identity thing. I will say not intentionally, but in retrospect, I was really smart about it, and so I enrolled in an executive MBA program I had class about 5 days a month either in London at London Business School or in New York at Columbia. And so that was quite literally like the bridge back in. I was actively deciding whether indeed I would move back to the States or not during those 2 years, and even had an apartment in New York for part of that time. And, with a dear friend from Italy, former life, so there were a little, there was some scaffolding to help me re enter. And what I did, I figured after that fancy global, very expensive MBA, 2 MBAs, they both wanted to give us a degree. I'm like, can I pay half and just get one certificate? But they didn't.
What a cool program that.
So really cool program, phenomenal experience. I figured if I'm ever like employable, now would be the moment, So I'm like, I'll get it like a real job, I'll do the New York thing and be a grown up and get a real job. That didn't go so well. And so I ended up starting a company which was designed to teach this 3D leadership that I had discovered, right? So again, it metabolized over time, but the learning from that first decade was I just went all in on impact, right? I had that purpose. I wanted to change lives. which is a beautiful thing, right? I can't fault myself for that. But I let go of the we dimension, both in terms of my family, as I shared, but also some ways professionally, right? I didn't expose myself. I was getting incredible experience. So again, no regrets, but I was missing some of the professionalism of our 20s of networking and meeting people and mentors. And then personally, it was tough to be a foreigner in a walled off, militarily surrounded city in Palestine. Like,
Yeah.
that was not easy we couldn't run outside. Like, we had a treadmill, but and so just some of the self practices got neglected. And so I learned, okay, simultaneously, we got to pursue world, some impact that we care about, but we can't put off the we, professional or personal, or certainly that me foundation. And so for 10 years, I taught people and guided people through that kind of a more integrated three-dimensional approach to leadership. Both MBA students who were kind of me a few years back, but also senior folks who were looking to retire an encore career, and moms who had taken some time off to raise families and now were looking to re-enter. So squigglers, really, but helping them provide this guidance for that process.
That's incredible. Do you I always try to be very thoughtful about the way I'm phrasing the question. Um, but who do you think has had the hardest time of those three groups with the squiggling?
Look, there is a lot of barriers against women, full stop, in the world right now,
Yeah.
in the workforce specifically, and after a break, most specifically. It is hard and so shamefully and angering so, because that talent pool is friggin' deep and broad and passionate and hungry and able. And so the way, there was kind of the trend of like return ships, which is part of what we were tapping into and trying to ride on. But, I just briefly a story. I placed this woman who came through one of our programs. She was Yale undergrad, I think a Yale lawyer, right? Had done some big firm work and then shifted to public sector work before having her kids. She and her partner had adopted at least two, if not three kids who were now kind of tween-ish age. And she felt like she had some time to give to do work and use her brain in a different way and engage and serve. And I was like, "Rachel, you're a badass. Like, we got what do you wanna do?" And she's like, "I used to be a law." I'm like, "Have you been disbarred? Did they revoke your diploma? Like, you are a lawyer."
Yeah.
Uh, the shrunkenness. So we found this job for her, which was kind of a perfect fit in impact investing, not exactly what she had done, but they just needed a smart analyst at this really progressive foundation in New York. And, they had a space where she could sit and work if she wanted, or she could work from home. This was all pre-COVID. So that was a big question of like, if my kids are sick, can I stay home? Blah, blah. So I went in with her to meet the VP that she was going to be working with, who was a friend and colleague of mine. And Preeti is like, moving a trillion miles a minute, very, very smart. And so Rachel's like, okay, along for the ride, trying to catch up. And we walk down, we kind of show the desk where she can sit. And Preeti's like, you have a badge, come and go. Let me know when you're in. We can get coffee, whatever you need. And by the time we hit ground floor on the elevator, Rachel was teary. And she was just like, I can't believe that they're entrusting me with this. I was so scared that I'm gonna be able to deliver enough, and I just lovingly shook her, and I was like, "Rachel, you this, like, she's blown away by you. She feels so lucky to have your help. She feels like she's underpaying you and understaffing you, like," and so that group is near and dear to my heart. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be so hard.
It shouldn't, but I think there is that whole moment where you think, "Oh, I haven't done this for a while," and, I work with a very similar population, I ran alumni career services at Smith College for almost 10 years, and like women coming back to the workforce. And I was like, you're all super smart women. I'm not asking you to become a neurosurgeon where you need some really specific
Unless you
skills.
were a neurosurgeon, in
Right,
which
unless
case
you
you
are a
keep doing it.
neurosurgeon, then yes, right? But I'm not asking you to do something the majority of jobs out there, if you're a smart human being, you can pick these things up really quickly. Most of the women I worked with, I could have plopped them in any job, and within a month, they would be killing it. So,
Truly.
getting people to understand that mindset. Um,
And getting
so
people on the other side, right? I certainly
yes,
don't
both
claim that,
sides of it.
like,
Yes.
employers are just idiotic to the extent they're not willing to see through that gap. It's such a missed opportunity.
But
Yeah.
even as you said there, right, this was someone you knew, so you could make that introduction. And
Right.
it's so interesting to me how many times I've either coached someone, worked with them, or even my own kids. They're both seniors in college right now to have that conversation. And I hear lines like, well, I don't want any nepotism. I was like, we're not Kardashians. It's not that I pay someone $20 million for them to take you on board, right? Like,
It's an introduction. This point.
and you still have to get the
Venture
job
capital.
yourself.
Yes.
And it's getting people to realize that. And, I always feel like I don't want to be sexist about it, but I think men just do this so much easier than we do as women.
1,000%.
And
Hey, buddy, I need a job for my kid. What do you got? Oh,
exactly.
yeah, sure. He can intern.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Literally.
Check
For
the box.
before the first shot on the golf course, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. One of my kids did an internship in investment banking last summer, 2 summers ago. And the man who she reported to actually said on Fridays, we're going to top golf in the afternoons. And so took her and the other interns to top golf for every Friday afternoon. And the beginning of it, she was like, Mom, what are they doing? I said, he's teaching you one of the most important skills you're ever going to need in the business
Correct.
world.
Yep.
I said, because
Yep.
if you are confident to go out on that golf course, I hate
As
to
a
say it
woman,
as a
you're gonna
woman,
get
but
every invite.
Yep.
I was like, because how many times does someone need a fourth player and they're like, oh, right? How great is it that we have a woman on our team, or times where you really should have?
Right.
So,
Also, AI can do your models now, so go golf
yeah.
and build relationships.
Yes. Yes.
100%. Okay, so I know one of the things that was in your bio and what really kind of made me excited to speak to you was this idea of systematic subtraction. And I love this. It's something that took me, I didn't know those were the words for it, but it's something that took me a while to be good with. Particularly, it took me working for myself to really get to that point. But I want you to kind of tell our listeners about this idea of systematic traction and, how it changes how they approach everything.
Yeah, thrilled to. I'll just preface briefly by saying, I have changed my title to this idea of subtraction activist because I feel that strongly about it. Like, I am so worried right now about the helpers who are the women and men who are trying to leave the world a better place, not in frontline nonprofit work necessarily, maybe, but also in investment banks, teaching young women to golf and owning restaurants that pay dignified wages and literally our whole economy, parents who are raising empathetic kids. The people who want to leave this world a better place are so overextended right now and heartbroken or burnt out or opting out fairly, right? And we need them more than ever right now. And so having come to systematic subtraction myself, maybe in some ways like you did, which I'll share the story of, I feel like really passionate about spreading this approach to it and normalizing it because it's not a matter of like a lifestyle hack or like, self-care, whatever regime. It's survival as humans and not to be grandiose, but like as a society, I think this matters. So that's my little pitch. But what is it? It's a more relational, nuanced version of less is more, right? So it's not kind of the 4-hour work week. I love my work. It's a huge part of my identity. I have more than 4 hours a week for it, you know? And it's not like, let them and just like find your own lane and do something over here. Beautiful things. And if they have helped people, great. But systematic subtraction is a really relational way of understanding in the system, right? The 3D-ness of your life and work for you and your well-being, for your we's, and for whatever portion of the world you're here to heal, what actually matters for you to do, and everything else has no space in your mind, on your
Mhm.
computer, in your heart.
That's, it's interesting. I had a coach, a professional coach a few years ago, and he was probably one of the most impactful people in this portion of my career. But um, because he forced this change upon me, he used to say, "Ashley, you have to stop jumping on bombs. You have to let other people fail. You don't there's no cape. You're not getting awards because you're going and fixing other people's problems. You need to focus on what needs to be done for you because you're burning yourself out by jumping on these bombs that aren't yours." And so what you're speaking about, there's just so much relatability to it, and it was a tough lesson I had to learn for myself. But I will tell you that when I stopped jumping on bombs and when I started subtracting, my sanity level improved.
And what did that do for the people around you?
It empowers them, and people learn through mistakes and they learn through challenges. That's where the growth comes from. It's what we talk about here every week as well, right? And I didn't realize because of the blinders I had on and in my normal just perfectionism that that I am inside, um, that I was taking all of that away from them. I was taking that away from my team and, from the teams around us, and what an opportunity it was to watch people thrive when I stopped stepping in. Yeah.
Yeah. That which is a huge category. I wrote a Forbes piece about that not that long ago. Like, delegation is a gift, right? It's a gift to let other people do stuff. I would venture to guess that also a lot of the people in your work and life probably appreciated a saner Ashley,
Yes, I would
Yes.
say 100% of the people around me prefer academic.
as well as the learning opportunities. They just got like a slightly saner, grounded you, which is
Yeah.
delightful. Yeah.
Yes. And my hair started to grow back.
It's very real. So true.
It's very
real.
real and like very crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, my hair's falling out. No big deal.
Yeah.
I must be on the right path. Crazy.
Yeah,
And it's again not blaming the victim. It's so normalized.
it is.
Not okay. That
No.
is the process of systematic subtraction is stop, drop, and roll. And stop is just where we stop and stop the red alerts and all the onslaught of information and say, like, so my hair's falling out. Like, how is this actually going?
Yeah.
And then without a coach necessarily forcing us, I mean, we take whatever we can get and whatever it takes to get there, but maybe we just could accept that my hair falling out means that something probably needs, like, at the very least, I need a new supplement. But
Yeah.
I would feel tracting something is a better place to start. And so then we drop.
Agreed. And it's interesting how I think most people don't even see how bad it's gotten. Right?
Mm.
It's the whole, like, boil the frog kind of analogy, right? Like, when you're living in it, you just don't realize. I tell the story often in my keynotes of working at a place where 5 people on a team of 12, and I was one of them, had surgery over, like, a 6-month period. All of us for some body part, right? For me, it was my knee. And when I came back, I said something to a coworker and said, the surgeon who did mine was a friend of mine. So we would joke around a lot about things. And at one point he was like, I still have no idea why your body didn't heal. Like this should not have required surgery. And at one point he said, like, let's do a full blood panel. Like, let's just make sure there's nothing else going on. There wasn't. But when I came back and said this to her, she said, oh, funny you say that. My doctor said the same thing to me. So I was like, whoa. And then we went around and started asking the other people. So all 5 of us had surgeries that our doctor said to us, you know, this should have healed. Like, not even on its own, but, I had done physical therapy. I had a cortisone shot. Like, I had done all of these things. And it's like, why was it not healing? And then all of us ended up leaving that job over the course of a year. And as we all look back, we're like, oh, right. It's so obvious now that that stress, the work that we were doing, like everything combined made it that our bodies couldn't actually function well.
Yeah.
But we
It-
didn't stop.
Right.
We just kept going.
We're at such an interesting place with it now, right? Because certainly generationally, I think there's a shift, right? And kids today are like, no, no, that's not the game. And they're being kind of shamed for being like lazy or whatever, but they'll move up and that's all great. What I think is really interesting is like the boomer, solidly Gen X, and even older millennials who like we now have an explicit narrative about the fact that this is wrong, right? Jeffrey Pfeffer wrote Work is Killing Us, I think pre-COVID, so maybe 7 years ago or something. And like, there's the case, right? There's the Surgeon General point on loneliness, which is adjacent but related. So we
Mhm.
kind of have this like head understanding. And this is where some of the horsework gets into it if you want to talk about that. But we obviously haven't actually internalized it to act on it, even when we're having to get cut open or lose hair or, the rates of cancer, I don't think can be unrelated to some of this or just the
Right.
exhaustion. We're falling asleep. So it's fascinating to me that we kind of have the whole routine. I know, oxygen mask for, we kind of parrot these things. And yet at a systematic level at least, which is where right, this making this systematic for us and all the people around us is really important to normalize subtraction as at least an equal skill and muscle to ambition and addition, which I am not opposed to. It just needs to be balanced.
Yeah. What was the first, as a part of that, what was the first thing that you subtracted?
Mm. Well, quite literally distracted driving. Because the catalyzing event for systematic subtraction was after 10 years of running this company, teaching people to do this 3D, I was like jamming. I had actually closed the company, which felt like a great wrap on a decade. Realized I didn't want to be a CEO. I was writing, I was speaking. My marriage was in a great place. I was bringing on these adult stepkids and building this blended family. It was great. And so I'm, in my early 40s, perimenopause, got to go to the trainer and build weights. So I'm driving to the trainer on Friday morning to lift my heavy weights. And I glance down at the cup, the cell phone in the cup holder and go head on into a 20-ton landscaping truck.
Oh,
Wow.
Thank the angels.
Mm.
I walked away totally unharmed, burns on my arm from the airbags and a chest bruise from the airbag. The other 3 people totally unharmed. They were, 6 feet above me in the truck. But I was like, okay, this is no joke, right? My work, presence, and intention is like the backbone of my work. And in the most dangerous moment of my day, when I'm piloting a 1,500, whatever, 2,000-pound vehicle, I cannot honor that value and be present and intentional. Something's wrong, right? So no matter how aligned I was, if you're doing too much, it's actually physically, existentially dangerous to me, but also to people around me.
Yes.
And that was, a one-way wake up.
I think a lot of people need to hear that because we have a really hard time disconnecting, and now with our devices, it feels like when we're not with them, holding them, engaging with it, somehow it gives us a sense of panic, and that disconnect worries us. Something's going to happen, and somehow we're going to get in trouble, or we're going to miss something critical. And then you're a great example of what happens when we're too attached to it and we're not focused on being present in what we need to be present in. And at that point, it was your personal safety and the safety of those around you. Um, so that was a good first subtraction for you.
Yeah. I'll say, I mean, the point of the work, right, is like, please don't get to that point. Don't
Right,
go
right.
head on into another car or blah, 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 right? We all have the various versions of those moments that wake us up. What I'll say is, in retrospect, I noticed, and I can't say I don't still do it. I walk around the house and bang into cabinets. I'm like, I don't know if I'm just a little awkward or clumsy, but if you're like stubbing your toes and bumping into cabinets, that's a pre-collision. So like, take that as data, or if your hair is falling out, or if your doctor's like, I don't know why your body can't heal this. These are all data points, hopefully a bit before anything gets too severe. That if you can't just listen to the sense inside, which is probably there if you're being honest, but some of these pretty physical, even if minor things, these are data points. So listen up and take it seriously.
Excellent.
So one more question before I think we jump into our end here, because I think of so many people that I've coached or just friends where you say to them, right, boy, you need to slow down, or you need to stop working 60-hour weeks. Right? I mean, all the burnout research shows that once you hit hour 51, burnout, right, come flying at you. And I say this, and I'll have whole rooms full of people be like, oh yeah, I always work more than 51 hours a week. How do you thinking, oh, how do you convince someone that it's going to be okay? I know a lot of the talk I talk about with folks is a lot of the tasks we do, one, we don't need to do, right? We overburden ourselves. And two, if we tell ourselves we have 6 hours to do something, it'll take us 6 hours to do it. If we tell ourselves that same task, we only have 30 minutes, we're probably going to get it done in 30 minutes. It's amazing how efficient we can be when there's something exciting or something you want to look forward to. And I know in my coaching, a lot of the talk is about what is that thing you're excited to do? What is the thing that gives you energy? So how do we make sure you're doing more of that? What are some of the advice that you give for folks who they hear this idea of systematic subtraction and they're like, oh, that's great for Nell. It's great for Ashley. It's great for Colleen. But me, I'm too big, right? I have too much to do. I'm too important. They couldn't live without me if I wasn't at the office 936 hours this week.
Yeah.
Good question.
I'm so glad we got there because this is the juice. This is the
Yes.
magic systematic subtraction. So, number one, a reminder of the economic law of diminishing returns. So, that's what's underlying that 51-hour rule is that after 51 hours, no matter who you are as a human, you are less effective. And it probably comes a lot before that on any single task. Right, so that's an economic law. It's not my opinion. It's not a hack. It's truth that every hour you do has diminishing returns. And the problem is that at first they work. It works, right? We get returns from that effort, but then the curve levels off. And so when we get to our mid 30s or 40s or 50s or to a certain point of seniority, we've done this gold star addiction chase and it has worked in some ways. But now it takes other things, right? What got you here can't get you there. And so you've got to just recognize the diminishing returns law. The second piece is that I'll do you one better than if you stop that 68-hour week. They're going to be okay. They're going to be better.
Yes.
Like your people, Ashley, who are like, Ashley's sane again. Hallelujah.
Oh,
We have
yes.
thing to do. Hallelujah. We're learning from her. We're actually getting her best. Like that's the systemic part of subtraction. It's not just saying, you know what, screw that. I'll stop doing that. I I don't like that meeting. I just won't go. That is not what this is about. We
Right.
ambition. We keep our desire for impact and strategically toward that ambition and desire for impact, we figure out what really matters. What do I do every day that moves the needle? Because sitting in a meeting with 8 other people where you haven't spoken up in a few weeks and you get AI notes and you have a junior the decision and bringing it back to you is probably not your best and highest use.
Yep.
You don't go to that meeting and you realize that you miss out on seeing a cross-functional peer who you never otherwise see, and you get a little reality check on their mood and you get to share relationship in the first 2 minutes before the agenda starts. Maybe that meeting is worth it. Keep it. Fair enough.
Or go for the first 2 minutes.
Or go for the
Hello.
virtual or invite coffee and actually get juicy with it, right?
Yeah.
Experimentation and the relational approach of systematic subtraction. It's not like which 10 things are less important or I hate, and I'm just going to drop those balls. That's not what we're talking about. It is a very thoughtful, experimental, data-based way to get locked in on where you're most powerful and important. And then keep evolving it, because it's not like, oh, I'm here, this is what I do, and you're good for the next 5 years, right? I'm running a daily practice now because it's a daily thing of like, am I stopping? What's the data? Okay, tomorrow I'm going to think about an experiment of a drop, right? It's very
Yeah.
stepwise.
So important. And, one of the things you talk about there, like just listening to you speak about it, is also that moment of pause. You have to be willing to stop and say, is this working? And be honest with yourself.
Really?
It's really work.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Be
I
honest
think
with yourself.
many people
first.
would be like, oh, this is working
Yeah,
great. Look
it's
at
great.
my
I'm fine.
73
We're
hours.
great.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I feel like we could talk for the next 3 hours, but we can't because that's just too
Diminishing return.
Diminishing.
Right. And is that fantastic? So we're going to end on the high note, and I'm going to toss it over to Ashleigh to kind of give us some of our kind of quick rapid fire questions here.
Yes. Okay. So whatever first comes to mind, or is at the top of your list, just based on the theme of our conversation today, what is your go-to self-care moment?
I love, love, love my morning meditation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Lie in bed, the alarm goes off, my phone is right there. I don't know how to get away from that. It's not optimal, but anyway, it's what I need. And I have a few different audio meditations that I really like, and I pop an AirPod in so I don't bother the dogs or the husband. And I love it. It's this like liminal. I often fall back asleep if we're being honest, but I'm still getting the juice, I think. And sometimes I don't, and it's just this gentle, beautiful way to start the day.
That's great. Do you ever use that meditation at the end of the day when it's been a harder or more challenging day?
Do you know?
So we jump back into it. Okay. What is your go-to dish that you bring to a potluck?
Mm, probably little toothpicks with baby mozzarella, cherry tomato, and a little basil leaf.
Oh
The
my gosh,
Italian in
that's
me.
mine too, because
Really?
yeah.
It's just so easy. I think they're so user friendly.
Yeah.
You know?
And
And
everybody loves
everybody-
them.
Yeah.
Everybody loves them. Everyone's like, wow, that's so brilliant. Like, thank you, Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Exactly. We always ask at the end of the podcast for folks to share a book with our listeners. It can be for pleasure or for personal growth. What is your go-to book that you love to recommend?
Mm. I've kind of studied it for a while and hadn't quite dug into it until really recently, but I'm going to go there anyway. And it's called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. It's a little heady, but actually also kind of like snarky and funny. It's actually quite well written. It's not like a bedtime read. It's heavy, it's thick, and so it hurts when it falls on your face. Ask me how I know. But it's really brilliant, and it ties into this idea of subtraction brilliantly. Very briefly, the take home is that you don't want to be fragile, right? Which is like easily broken. But what's the opposite of that, right? We think of like robust or resilient, but that's actually not the opposite. That's just like I don't break or like I always come back. Anti-fragile is I am enriched by challenge. And he talks a lot about via negativa, which is a version of subtraction. And so I think of him, he's definitely kind of an intellectual mentor, but it's a really beautiful way that picks up on natural wisdom, which means a lot to me, but also kind of other fields, medicine, interesting for what you shared, Colleen, economic. It's a very interesting take on all this. So that's kind of a nerdy one. I just finished My Friends, which is a delicious, delicious novel.
These are great book recommendations, and I saw Colleen write them down for us so that we can check them out too. So,
Please.
no, this has been such a pleasure to have you with us today, and thank you for sharing just your journey on how you got to where you are today and the systemic subtraction. I should say that a few times.
Actually.
But I am definitely a proponent of what I like to call simplicity. So I love this concept and feel like it's so relatable to so many people, and appreciate you coming on today to share it with us and our listeners. And we will make sure that people are able to connect with you, um, after the podcast. But do you have a preferred method before we wrap up?
Yeah, my number one invitation is to come play in this daily practice I mentioned. And so I'm not sure, I'll make sure you have a guest pass to the paid section of my Substack for your listeners so they can check it out for 90 days and see what they think. But right now we're about midway through. It's evergreen, so drop in whenever you want to this daily practice. And it's just a little daily nudge invitation. There's a song for every day as well. So for those of you who like to belt it out in the shower, have a little dance break, that's there. And it's my own practice that I'm very happily sharing with folks and watching us all navigate this to build this muscle of subtraction. I'm on LinkedIn, nell3d.com works, but the Substack is the laboratory where this is all happening real time.
So fun. I can't wait to jump in there and check it out.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Nell, and can't wait to keep this conversation going in your Substack.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. Great conversation.